जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग गंधर्विका गिरिधारी जीव की जय। जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग श्री श्री राधा मदन मोहन पंचतत्वात्मक श्री गौर हरि की जय। जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग श्री श्री राधा नयननाथ जीव की जय। जय श्री गौर नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय श्री जगन्नाथ देव की जय। जय नित्यलीला परिष्ठ ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंसास्तत्रशिल भक्ति वल्लभ तीर्थ गोसाई महाराज की जय। जय नित्यलीला परिष्ठ ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंसास्तत्रशिल भक्ति दैत माधव गोसाई महाराज की जय। जय नित्यलीला परिष्ठ ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंसास्तत्रशिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। जय परमहंसा श्री गौर किशोर दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। जय शिशिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। जय वैष्णव सार्वभौम शिल जगन्नाथ दास बाबा जी महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूपानुग गुरुवर की जय। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासुदेव गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपी गौ गोवर्धन वृंदावन श्री राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद आत्मक श्री ब्रज मंदिर की जय। जय श्री नवदीप धाम की जय। जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम धाम की जय। जय श्री बालुदेव सुभद्रा जगन्नाथ श्री सुदर्शन चक्र जीव की जय। जय श्री वृंदा देवी तुलसी देवी की जय। जय सर्व विघ्न विनाशनकारी श्री नृसिंह देव की जय। जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। जय समागत भक्त वृंद की जय। जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। गौर परमानंदे हरि बोल। वंदे हम श्री गुरु श्री जुता पदकमला श्री गुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्री रूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितंश्च श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम Ramo Ramo Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare, Hari Bol, 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 Hari Bol. We are hearing SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. Jauro Bharat is explaining to King Rahugana now this story about merchant going to forest, like what is the direct meaning in relation to Jiva's soul in material existence. Yesterday we heard the conditioned soul sometimes personally appreciates the futility of sense enjoyment in the material world, and he sometimes considers material enjoyment to be full of miseries. However, due to his strong bodily conception, his memory is destroyed, and again he runs after material enjoyment, just as an animal runs after a mirage in the desert. If you don't remove avidya, ignorance, then you cannot remove this desire for sense enjoyment. Even you know it is causing suffering, but still you cannot give up. Kvachit uluka jili svanavat ati purusha rabhasa topam pratyaksham paroksham varipu raja kula nirbharsi tenati vyatita karna mula hridayaha. Sometimes the conditioned soul is very aggrieved by the chastisement of his enemies and government servants, who use harsh words against him directly or indirectly. At that time his heart and ears become very saddened. Such chastisement may be compared to the sounds of owls and crickets. Now he's explaining directly what was meant before. So this is also very sad when you have to hear such things, harsh words and chastisement. Sa yada dugda purva sukrita stada karaskara kaka tundadi apunya druma lota Vishoda Panavat Ubayarta Shunya Dravinan Jivan Mritan Swayam Jivan Mriyamana Upadhavati. Due to his pious activities in previous lives, the conditioned soul attains material facilities in this life. But when they are finished, he takes shelter of wealth and riches, which cannot help him in this life or the next. Because of this, he approaches the living dead who possesses these things. Such people are compared to impure trees, creepers, and poisonous wells. Here in commentary, Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami is saying, the wealth and riches acquired through previous pious activities should not be misused for sense gratification. Enjoying them for sense gratification is like enjoying the fruits of a poisonous tree. Such activities will not help the conditioned soul in any way, neither in this life nor the next. However, if one engages his possessions in the service of the Lord under the guidance of a proper spiritual master, he will attain happiness both in this life and the next. Unless he does so, he eats a forbidden apple and thereby loses his paradise. But I could not understand this. Because of this, he approaches the living dead who possesses these things. What is this? Living dead. Jivat Mritan, who are dead, although apparently alive. I don't know, maybe like people who are in ignorance, they are alive, but they are actually dead because they have no devotion to Krishna. So they possess this wealth and riches. So if you go to them, it is like approaching one who is living dead. Such people are compared to impure trees, creepers, and poisonous wells. You have no benefit from them. No actual benefit. Ekadasat prasangan nikrita matir vyudaka srotah skalanavat ubhayato pi dukhadam pakandam abhiyati. Sometimes, to mitigate the stresses in this forest of the material world, the conditioned soul receives cheap blessings from atheists. He then loses all intelligence in their association. This is exactly like jumping in a shallow river. As a result, one simply breaks his head. He is not able to mitigate his sufferings from the heat, and both ways he suffers. The misguided conditioned soul also approaches so-called sadhus and swamis who preach against the principles of the Vedas. He does not receive benefit from them either in the present or in the future. So if you jump in shallow river, you will be injured, and also you cannot get relief from heat. So there is no use. So to go to such people, atheists or so-called gurus, that is no benefit. Yada tu para badha yandha atmane no panamati tada hi pitriputra barhishmataha pitriputran vasa kalu bakshayati. In this material world, when the conditioned soul cannot arrange for his own maintenance, despite exploiting others, he tries to exploit his own father or son, taking away that relative's possessions, although they may be very insignificant. If he cannot acquire things from his father, son, or other relatives, he is prepared to give them all kinds of trouble. Here in the commentary, once we actually saw a distressed man steal ornaments from his daughter just to maintain himself. As the English proverb goes, necessity knows no law. When a conditioned soul needs something, he forgets his relationship with his relatives and exploits his own father or son. We also receive information from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM that in this age of Kali, the time is quickly approaching when a relative will kill another relative for a small farthing. This is already happening. And the Dundukari, brother of Gokarna, he also was giving so much trouble to his parents for getting money so that he could spend on prostitutes. Ajamil also spent all the money of his parents and so many others. So because of uncontrolled senses, we cannot but do such things. Kvachit asadya griham davavat priyartha vidhuram asukkodarkam shakagnina dahyamano brisham nirvedam upagachati. In this world, family life is exactly like a blazing fire in the forest. There is not the least happiness, and gradually one becomes more and more implicated in unhappiness. In household life, there is nothing favorable for perpetual happiness. Being implicated in home life, the conditioned soul is burned by the fire of lamentation. Sometimes he condemns himself as being very unfortunate, and sometimes he claims that he suffers because he performed no pious activities in his previous life. Then someone will think, I have to give up household life, I have to renounce everything. That will also not make you happy. Happy is only when you are accepting service of Krishna, either in household life, meaning you understand everything belongs to Krishna, house, all relatives, everything, or in the forest. There is Saubari Rishi was in forest, but he could not be happy, and Vishwamitra and others. So the happiness is in bhajan of Krishna. Grihe tako, bone tako, sada hori bole tako. It doesn't matter you stay in house or in forest, but you chant Harinam. And Narottam Thakur told, Grihe babonete take, hago rango bole dake. Narottam age tarsanga. He may be in household in or this. If he chants hago rango, then I want his association. And that song, Je kono bebesa dhari, jibono nirvahe hori. Muke bolo hori hori. In whatever way you are staying, Je kono bebesa dhari, jibone nirvaha kori. How you are maintaining your life in whatever way, either by earning in household life or by begging in Mukhe bolo hori hori. you chant Harinam for Krishna satisfaction. Kvachit kala vishamita raja kula raksha sapahrita priyatama dana suhu pramritaka iva vigata jiva lakshana aste. Government men are always like carnivorous demons called rakshasas, meat eaters. Sometimes these government men turn against the conditioned soul and take away all his accumulated wealth. Being bereft of his life's reserved wealth, the conditioned soul loses all enthusiasm. Indeed, it is as though he loses his life. They have many ways how to do this, in the guise of, no, it is for your good. Kadachin mano ratho bhagata pitripita mahadi asat sat iti sapna nirvriti lakshanam anubhavati. Sometimes the conditioned soul imagines that his father or grandfather has again come in the form of his son or grandson. In this way, he feels the happiness one sometimes feels in a dream. And the conditioned soul sometimes takes pleasure in such mental concoctions. But that is only like a happiness like in dream. It doesn't really touch you, and also it is temporary and false. Kvachit grihashrama karma chodanati bhara girim arurukshamano loka vyasana karshita manah kantaka sharkara kshetram pravishan iva siddhati. In household life, one is ordered to execute many yagyas and fruitive activities, especially the Vivaha Yagya, that is the marriage ceremony for sons and daughters, and the sacred thread ceremony, that is for Brahmins. Also Kshatriyas and Vaishyas they can take. These are all the duties of a Grihastha, and they are very extensive and troublesome to execute. They are compared to a big hill over which one must cross when one is attached to material activities. A person desiring to cross over these ritualistic ceremonies certainly feels pains like the piercing of thorns and pebbles endured by one attempting to climb a hill. Thus, the conditioned soul suffers unlimitedly. This is for those who are following Vedic scriptures, Varnashram Dharma. They, as Grihastas, they have to do such yagyas and samskaras, rituals. They are 10. So that is also not so easy. Of course, here in Western countries, there is no Vedic following, so such ceremonies are not there, but the other demands of the senses are so great all the time. This enjoyment, that enjoyment, going to see and enjoy, and then there is everything is very expensive, but you have to give. So all the time suffering because of uncontrolled senses wanting sense enjoyment. Kvachich cha duhsahena kaya bhyantara vahnina grihita sarah sva kutumbaya krudyati. Sometimes due to bodily hunger and thirst, the conditioned soul becomes so disturbed that he loses his patience and becomes angry with his own beloved sons, daughters, and wife. Thus, being unkind to them, he suffers all the more. Sometimes due to misery, one becomes very hardened towards his affectionate sons, daughters, and wife. This is but part of the blazing fire of the forest of material life. When your desires are not fulfilled or necessities not fulfilled, then automatically due to false ego you become angry, and then you misbehave with others, and then as a result you have to suffer more. Sa eva punar nidra jagara grihito ndhe tamasi magnah shunyaranya iva shete nanyat kinchana veda shava iva pavidaha. Shukadev Goswami continued speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. My dear king, sleep is exactly like a python. Those who wander in the forest of material life are always devoured by the python of sleep. Being bitten by this python, they always remain in the darkness of ignorance. They are like dead bodies thrown in a distant forest. Thus the conditioned souls cannot understand what is going on in life. Here I will read the commentary. Material life means being fully absorbed in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Out of this, sleep is taken very seriously. While asleep, one completely forgets the object of life and what to do. For spiritual realization, one should try to avoid sleep as much as possible. The Goswamis of Vrindavan practically did not sleep at all. Of course, they slept some, for the body requires sleep, but they slept only about 2 hours and sometimes not even that. They always engaged in spiritual cultivation. Nidrahara viharakadi vijito. Following in the footsteps of the Goswamis, we should try to reduce sleeping, eating, mating, and defending. So based on this, I had one god brother, still I have. He was very much afraid of sleeping because of this. He was in this organization before, and somehow he got this idea like as if sleep is some kind of sin. So although he was very tired and could not, but still he would not want to sleep and like this. But that is not what is meant here. You have to know also what Krishna told, that one who can practice yoga, one who does not eat too much and not too less, and also not sleep too much, not too less. So it is according to individual qualification capacity. The Goswamis, what kind of devotion they had. Because of that, they could reduce sleep to such an extent. Or Haridas Thakur. But if I don't have such positive devotion, such spiritual strength, and if I try to artificially reduce my sleep to not appropriate degree, then my bhajan will also suffer. And our Gurudev also, he gave one example, teachable example. When he came newly to the mat, white cloth brahmachari, then very early in the morning he woke up, and that time they were staying same room, many, and he woke up and he used to chant Harinam loudly, because Harinam is the best devotional practice in this age of Kali, so he was doing. Then Parangurudev noticed him and he said, why you are doing so loudly? You are disturbing other Vaishnavas, they are sleeping. You should know that by sleeping they are doing better bhajan than you. So then our Gurudev explained, because I was thinking like making a show that I am a great devotee. But those Vaishnavas, they were actually taking rest as body needs it so that it can function, and they are taking rest also for the service of Krishna. They are sleeping for the service of Krishna, because to give rest to body, which they will use then for the service of Krishna. So by resting, they are doing better bhajan than you, because they are doing that resting for ultimately for Krishna's service. So we have to know what is the point, what he wants to say. That unnecessary sleep and eat and this, according to individual present qualification, we should reduce. Accordingly, how much we are positively engaged and how much positive realization we have. That much. Not only artificially, externally imitating some devotees on these bodily things. That I'm thinking this is some kind of devotion. No, they were doing devotion, Shravan, Kirtan, Smaran, everything. And because they were always in transcendental bliss, for them it was possible to reduce. Like Madhavendra Puri. He did not even beg for food. If he did not get anything voluntarily from anyone, then he would fast. But that is no problem for him. But I become disturbed if I don't eat, if I don't sleep, if I don't do appropriate. Then in that disturbed condition, I cannot do any proper chanting or any seva. So this practically we have to see. Kadachid bhagna mana damstro durjana danda shuker alabda nidra kshano vyatita hrida ye nanu kshi yamana vigyano da kupen dhavat patati. Means that my God brother, he was like torturing himself. He was thinking, no, I should not, though he was too much, but he somehow was forcing himself not to sleep, torturing, because he thought that sleeping is something very bad. It is like a sin. It's very bad. But it is not like that. Depends for what you are sleeping. If you are sleeping because of tamaguna, out of laziness, that is another thing. But if you give rest for the body to give for the service of Krishna, then that is another thing. But he was not practicing like that. Then you become sick, and then when you are sick, then even less bhajan you can do because of disturbance. In the forest of the material world, he thought that not sleeping is already a kind of spiritual practice or advancement, but it is not. That was misconception his. In the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul is sometimes beaten by envious enemies. which are compared to serpents and other creatures. Through the tricks of the enemy, the conditioned soul falls from his prestigious position. Being anxious, he cannot even sleep properly. He thus becomes more and more unhappy, and he gradually loses his intelligence and consciousness. In that state, he becomes almost perpetually like a blind man who has fallen into a dark well of ignorance. Anxiety does not allow you to sleep because of so many desires or worries and this. That is why in Bhagavatam there it is mentioned, like those who are rich persons, they have much anxiety. I heard from Gurudev how to preserve, how to spend, how to with this money all the time thinking, worries, what to do, so they cannot sleep. So they have to take those sleeping pills. And sometimes they take too much, then they die also. Or Gurudev told one example, someone almost died, but somehow they took him to hospital, and by some vomiting he could bring that thing out, otherwise he would die. But in Bhagavatam, that Pingala, she was prostitute, and she was always waiting for like men to come. Always she was anxious, always this, but then one day she understood that this is not good. And she gave up that desire and she became peaceful. And it is written there, that night she slept very peacefully. Karhi smachit kama madhu lavan vichinvan yada para dara para dravyani avarun dhano ragya swamibir va nihataha patati apare niraye. The conditioned soul is sometimes attracted to the little happiness derived from sense gratification. Thus he has illicit sex or steals another's property. At such a time he may be arrested by the government or chastised by the woman's husband or protector. Thus, simply for a little material satisfaction, he falls into a hellish condition and is put into jail for rape, kidnapping, theft, and so forth. Atha cha tasmat ubhaya tapi hi karmasmin atmanaha sangsara vapanam udaharanti. Learned scholars and transcendentalists therefore condemn the materialistic path of fruitive activity because it is the original source and breeding ground of material miseries, both in this life and in the next. Due to false ego, I think I will work and then I will enjoy that sense gratification. So this is this. But this ultimately produces more and more suffering. So those who are udaharanti, the authorities of the Vedas, means learned scholars and transcendentalists. They say this is not good. Muktas tato yadi bandat Devadatta upachinati tasmat api Vishnu mitra iti anavastitihi. Stealing or cheating another person out of his money. The conditioned soul somehow or other keeps it in his possession and escapes punishment. Then another man named Devadatta cheats him and takes the money away. Similarly, another man named Vishnu Mitra steals the money from Devadatta and takes it away. In any case, the money does not stay in one place. It passes from one hand to another. Ultimately, no one can enjoy the money, and it remains the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is explanation already in translation of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. It is not in Sanskrit, but he wants to let us know that who is the real proprietor of money. That is Supreme Lord. He is called Narayan or Madhava. Madhava means the husband of Lakshmi. He is proprietor. So if we understand this and earn for him and spend for him, then we can be peaceful. Otherwise not. All the time this circulation of money will happen. Yes. The goddess of fortune cannot stay anywhere but by the side of Narayan. Therefore, another of her names is Chanchala, or restless. She cannot be peaceful unless she is in the company of her husband. So, all the time, the example of this is that Shamantaka jewel. Whoever got it, lost it and was killed also in Krishna Lila there. This was shown that money that was producing gold and wealth, so whoever had it, he was killed. So here in the commentary, riches come from Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, and the goddess of fortune is the property of Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The goddess of fortune cannot stay anywhere but by the side of Narayan. Therefore, another of her name is Chanchala, restless. She cannot be peaceful unless she is in the company of her husband, Narayan. For example, Lakshmi was carried away by the materialistic Ravan. Ravan kidnapped Sita, the goddess of fortune belonging to Lord Rama. As a result, Ravana's entire family, opulence and kingdom were smashed. And Sita, the goddess of fortune, was recovered from his clutches and reunited with Lord Rama. Thus, all property, riches, and wealth belongs to Krishna. Belong to Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheswaram. Before it is Aham hi sarvaya jnanam bhokta cha prabhur evacha. I am bhokta and I am Prabhu. Aham hi sarvaya jnanam bhokta prabhur evacha. No one else. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the true beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities. And he is the supreme proprietor of all the planetary systems. Foolish materialistic people collect money and steal from other thieves, but they cannot keep it. In any case, it must be spent. One person cheats another, and another person cheats someone else. Therefore, the best way to possess Lakshmi is to keep her by the side of Narayan. This is the point of the Krishna consciousness movement. We worship Lakshmi or Radharani along with Narayan or Krishna. We collect money from various sources, but that money does not belong to anyone but Radha and Krishna or Lakshmi and Narayan. If money is utilized in the service of Lakshmi Narayan, the devotee automatically lives in an opulent way. However, if one wants to enjoy Lakshmi the way Ravana did, he will be vanquished by the laws of nature, and whatever few possessions he has will be taken away. Finally, death will take everything away, and that is the representative of Krishna. Srila A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Maharaj told there in Gita, there is a simple formula for peace. If you understand that everything belongs to Krishna, then there will be peace, otherwise not. Immediately anyone thinks I am proprietor of anything, then there will be quarrel with others and fighting for that thing. Be it gross, like money, property like this, or subtle, for name and fame, position, this. Always there will be fighting. That is why Ambarish Maharaj also, he was thinking, though he was the sole owner, legal owner of the whole world, but he was thinking, if I will think that really I'm the owner, I will go to hell. This belongs to Krishna, everything. Then when you are in this mood and you want to engage everything for the service of Krishna, then you have no problem. But immediately you want to enjoy anything, any material thing, there will be quarrel and envy, malice, everything. Kvachit cha shita vatadi anekadhi devika bhautikatmiyanam dashanam prati nivarane kalpo duranta chintaya vishana aste. Our Gurudev told, in the case of Ambarish, we may say, but to actually believe like this, like Ambarish had this, that is not so easy. You need realization, like he had. He had pure devotion to Krishna, that is why he could think like that. We may say, but we don't think like that. We have no feeling, means anubhuti, or no realization of that truth, that everything belongs to Krishna. That is why we are quarreling all the time, fighting, and by fighting, we forget about the service of Krishna. We lose service of Krishna by fighting. Being unable to protect himself from the threefold miseries of material existence, the conditioned soul becomes very morose and lives a life of lamentation. These threefold miseries are miseries suffered by mental calamity at the hands of the demigods, such as freezing wind and scorching heat, miseries offered by other living entities, and miseries arising from the mind and body themselves. That is Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, Adidevika. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told to Sanatana Goswami. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita you have the gist, essence of all Bhagavatam. Very simple way explained, everything you need to know for proper practice. Kvachin mito vyavaharan yat kinchit dhanam anyabhyo va kakinika matram apya paharan yat kinchit va vidvesham iti vita shatyat. As far as transactions with money are concerned, if one person cheats another by a farthing or less, they become enemies. Yes. Immediately now in Kali Yuga, for small things, enemies, quarrel, fighting, killing, everything. For worldly possessions, because we are in ignorance, this no one can stop. Unless you come out from ignorance and you realize you belong to Krishna and everything belongs to Krishna, till that time we will fight. Advani amusmin ima upasargas tatha sukha dukha raga dvesha bhaya bhimana pramadonmada shoka moha lobha matsaryer shava manukshut pipasadi vyadi janma jara marana dayaha. This is very clear description now. In this materialistic life, there are many difficulties, as I have just mentioned, and all of these are insurmountable. You cannot cross over. In addition, there are difficulties arising from so-called happiness, distress, attachment, hate, fear, false prestige, illusion, madness, lamentation, bewilderment, greed, envy, enmity, insult, hunger, thirst, tribulation, disease, birth, old age, and death. All these combine together to give the materialistic conditioned soul nothing but misery. That is the point. Nothing but misery. That happiness, what we think is happiness, is so-called happiness. It's temporary and is mixed with suffering, and it cannot fulfill you. So this material existence is not desirable. Kvapi deva mayaya striya bhuja lato pa gura praskanna viveka vigyano yat vihara griharam bakula hridayastat ashraya vasakta suta duhitri kalatra bashita valoka vicheshtita pahrita hridaya atmanam ajitatma pare de tamasi prahinote. Again, very nice description. Sometimes the conditioned soul is attracted by illusion personified. In brackets it is written his wife or girlfriend, and becomes eager to be embraced by a woman. Thus he loses his intelligence as well as knowledge of life's goal. At that time, no longer attempting spiritual cultivation, he becomes overly attached to his wife or girlfriend and tries to provide her with a suitable apartment. Again, he becomes very busy under the shelter of that home and is captivated by the talks, glances, and activities of his wife and children. In this way, he loses his Krishna consciousness and throws himself in the dense darkness of material existence. If he is not Krishna conscious, and wife and children are not Krishna conscious, but if they are, then they can help each other also in Krishna consciousness. But here this is not the case. That is another, like fully in ignorance. Kadachit Ishvarasya Bhagavato Vishnuschakrat Paramanu Adi Dvi Parardha Pavarga Kalo Palakshanat parivartitena vayasa ramhasa harata abrahmatrina stambadinam bhutanam ani mishatam vitrasta hridayastam eveshwaram kala chakra nijayudam shakshad bhagavantam yagya purusham anadritya pakhanda devataha kanka gridra baka vata praya arya samaya parihritaha sanketyena vidhate. The personal weapon used by Lord Krishna, the disc, is called Hari Chakra, the disc of Hari. This chakra is the wheel of time. It expands from the beginning of the atoms up to the time of Brahma's death, and it controls all activities. It is always revolving and spanning the lives of the living entities, from Lord Brahma down to an insignificant blade of grass. Thus one changes from infancy to childhood to youth and maturity, and thus one approaches the end of life. It is impossible to check this wheel of time. This wheel is the very exacting, because it is the personal weapon of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the conditioned soul, fearing the approach of death, wants to worship someone who can save him from imminent danger. Yet he does not care for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose weapon is the indefatigable time factor. Never tired, always doing his duty. The conditioned soul instead takes shelter of a man-made god described in unauthorized scriptures. Such gods are like buzzards, vultures, herons, and crows. Vedic scriptures do not refer to them. Imminent death is like the attack of a lion, and neither vultures, buzzards, crows, and herons can save one from such an attack. One who takes shelter of unauthorized, man-made gods cannot be saved from the clutches of death. Yes. Tomorrow we will further hear. Everyone is under the influence of time, and everyone is fearful, all conditioned souls. And whatever you do, you cannot escape. There is only one way. If you surrender to Krishna, then you can be free from fear and free from death. Tomorrow we'll further hear. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, 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 Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gaurango Gandharvika Giridhari Ji ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gaurango Shri Radha Madan Mohan Panchatatatmak Shri Gaura Hari ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gaurango Shri Radha Nayananath Ji ki Jai. Jai Shri Gaur Nityananda Prabhu ki Jai. Jai Shri Jagannath Dev ki Jai. Jai Patit Pavan Shila Gurudev ki Jai. Jai Shila Parang Gurudev ki Jai. Jai Shila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupanuga Guruvari ki Jai. Jai Shri Panchatattva Prabhu ki Jai. Jai Shri Brinda Devi Tulsi Devi ki Jai. Jai Sarva Vigna Vinashanakari Shri Nrishinga Dev ki Jai. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki Jai. Jai Samagata Bhakta Brinda ki Jai. Jai Shri SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM ki Jai. Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Gaur Pramanande Hari Bol. Thank you all. Dandavat Pranam. Hari Bol.